Welcome to another edition of Through a Veteran's Eye. I'm your host, Art Callaham. Our program today will focus on activities that veterans might participate in to create a new career or continue their service to their country and community in some unique way. So often the service members leave active duty closing the door on a vibrant role in current events and affairs. Recently, a young veteran spoke of what it was like to leave the military service. One day, he was acknowledged as having good leadership skills and being a dedicated and well-focused on his job, defending this great country. People stopped him, shook his hands, and thanked him for his service. And the next day, having been honorably discharged, he was a bit lost. Getting a job was very difficult. He felt he was nothing. Today, we'll talk about things veterans can do to use the skills they might not realize they have. Before I get to our guest, I want to remind you of the telephone number of Maryland's commitment to veterans, the Behavioral Health Services, which is a hotline for veterans and their families needing help with behavioral health issues. That number is 1-877-770-4801. We'll run that number several times during this and each episode of Through a Veteran's Eye. My guest today is Mr. Bob Wantz, a U.S. Navy veteran. Welcome, Bob, and thank you for your service in our country.
Well, thank you, Art. It's nice to be here.
Tell me a little bit about your Navy service.
Well, one of the things I'll never forget is my 477-1019. That's my service number.
RA 11-6101-84. It never goes away, does it?
Right, right. That goes back over 50 years.
Yes.
But at any rate, I was drafted in the Navy back in 1958. And it was kind of unusual because only 2 times in our nation's history has the United States drafted into the Navy, once during World War II and the Korean War.
Right.
So I was drafted in the Navy. They took us all down there to Fort Heidelberg and gave us what they called the idiot test. And they told me I scored higher on this idiot test, so I got the Navy. And I wasn't very happy about that because I wanted to be in the Army. They wanted to know why, and I said, well, my 3 brothers were in the Army.
Right,
and they'd probably kid me being in the Navy, which they did.
Right.
At any rate, I told him I wanted the Army. He says, well, you can't get in the Army, you're in the Navy. So that's kind of the story on that. Yeah,
I got you. Well, you know, you're a local, renowned, well-known artist here in our community. Why art, and what got you into that, Bob?
Well, you know, back in school, some people are good in math, some people are good in science, some people are good in English, literature, or whatever, and I was always fairly good in art. It came easy to me, and I never really did much with it until I got out of the service. Incidentally, I was in the service, a station down at Little Creek, Virginia, and I was there 21 months and 18 days. And my service career is not very exciting or noble.
Sure.
All I did was pound the typewriter for 21 months and 18 days.
Right, right.
So that was my service at Little Creek. One of the interesting things down there was they did train the SEALs there. We've heard a lot about the SEALs lately. And they were training the SEALs down there then, so that was quite interesting. Right. At any rate, after I got out of the Navy, I started taking a couple classes out at the museum, and I did okay with it, and I started painting. And the first show that I entered, which is kind of unusual, was down at Harper's Ferry at the Hilltop House. So I entered this painting, and I couldn't believe it, but at any rate, I won Best in Show in my first show.
Okay.
It's sort of like the baseball player, you know, he comes up a rookie and the first time up he hits a home run.
Right, right.
Well, it doesn't happen too often, but it can happen.
Sure.
So at any rate, when that happened down there at the Hilltop House in Harpers Ferry, I was kind of hooked. And so I started painting and selling paintings, and then later on I started teaching. And I've taught at the museum out here at the City Park, the Washington County Museum, for over 20 years. And I taught for many years at the Hagerstown Community College, roughly about the same number of time, about 20 years. So it's nice to have that in my retirement. In fact, I'm very glad I have that. I can do this in retirement. It kind of keeps the juices flowing.
Sure. Do you see art as an outlet for your creative side, and how does that relate to the to your time in the Navy, maybe?
Well, my the time in the Navy and the art, there isn't much correlation there.
Okay.
I just always liked art, and a lot of the paintings that that I do are of fields and streams and farms and barns and fences and meadows and woods and mountains. I'm a landscape painter.
Sure.
That's what I do. I do landscapes. I also do seascapes. You
We're
might say mostly I do Washington County scapes.
All right. We're going to run some pictures that you have painted. So tell us a little bit about some of your favorite pictures, and they're going to appear on the screen here.
Okay, well, I don't know exactly which one's coming up first, second, third, and fourth. I'll just give a generalization of the thing. But I have some snow scenes in here. I have some fall, autumn scenes, a fair amount of winter scenes. Winter's coming on. And a lot of times people like winter scenes. Maybe it cools them off in the summertime.
Right.
I don't know what it is. But I do all four of the seasons, and I do, as I mentioned earlier, farms and barns and meadows and trees and streams and rivers and mountains. Washington County, that's what I do, frankly, because that's what sells around here.
Bob, we're going to run out of time in a minute. I want to make sure that we get a telephone number at the Washington County Museum of Fine Arts. That's 301-739-5727. If you're interested at all in taking art classes from Bob Wantz, a retired Navy veteran, what would you have to say to some veteran that might be interested in taking your art classes?
Come on out, call the museum or call me. I'm in the white pages. My number in the is 301-733-5981. Love to have you. I've had many veterans.
Thank you, veterans, for watching today on Through a Veteran's Eye, and thanks to Bob Wantz for being our guest today.